In addition to the many obvious reasons that Donald Trump would probably prefer to remain as president after this January, there are also a few reasons lurking in the background, things that are waiting for him if he has to go back to being a private citizen. And joining us to break down a few of the most important for the soon-to-be former president is a senior Washington correspondent for Business Insider, Dave Leventhal. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, great to be with you, John.
Great to have you here. So Trump, president now, soon to be private citizen, assuming all of this tomfoolery and shenanigans going on doesn't work out for him. So in terms of his legal future, he as president has faced certain types of challenges, but he's also been protected in a variety of ways, correct?
Sure has. So being president of the United States comes with a pretty big perk, which is presidential immunity. And Donald Trump, John, has a whole world of hurt waiting for him, a whole world of pain waiting for him when he leaves the White House. And that comes in earnest on January 20th. So we are talking about criminal matters, we're talking about civil matters, talking about federal level matters and also state level matters. And wherever Donald Trump goes, whether that's New York City or Mar-a-Lago or all over the world, he's gonna have back here in the United States waiting for him years and years worth of legal peril at multiple levels involving his political actions, his campaign, his private actions, his business actions, and of course his taxes. So if you're Donald Trump, you're probably not too happy about the prospects awaiting you.
And so just to be clear, there's no remaining protection against a variety of different sorts of lawsuits. There's no, I mean, other than like hypothetically norms or something like that, but there's no longer any DOJ protection, any memo saying they can't be indicted or anything like that.
Not really. So once Donald Trump leaves the White House, leaves the presidency, he loses any immunity and he becomes a private citizen again. So take the Mueller report, which in the midst of 2020, it's easy to forget about what happened and that Donald Trump was actually impeached and put on trial earlier this year. But basically, the Mueller report, if you remember, laid out a whole variety of ways that Donald Trump potentially could have obstructed justice. And if Donald Trump leaves the White House and impeachment is no longer really the one remedy to go after Donald Trump for those types of violations, you could potentially have the DOJ, the Department of Justice, going after Donald Trump again. We have active matters in New York State. The state attorney general and the district attorney in Manhattan are going after Donald Trump for various business-related affairs. So yeah, put that all together in a big soup, and it's a number of different things that we've identified that Donald Trump is going to be dogged by likely for months, if not years to come.
So based on what you've seen coming out of the DOJ, or at least talked about from Joe Biden and his team, how likely do you think those actions are? At least we could set aside the New York stuff, but the stuff that would involve the DOJ, has Biden given any indication that he would be interested in pursuing any of that? Does he need to be involved for the DOJ to continue any of those sorts of investigations?
So the second part of your question first is that no, Joe Biden wouldn't necessarily need to be involved in the Department of Justice under a Biden administration going after Donald Trump. Now, Joe Biden has already said, hey, look, what I'm gonna do with the DOJ is basically let the DOJ be the DOJ. So he's kind of telegraphing at this point that he's not going to have a very hands-on type of control over that department. Perhaps in a way that Donald Trump has been criticized for, where Donald Trump and Attorney General Barr have had a very close relationship, perhaps closer than what we've had in the past. So bottom line is that if the Department of Justice did want to go after Donald Trump, it would be their prerogative to do so. But those state level matters that we just mentioned, those could actually be the bigger issue for Donald Trump, in the sense that the federal government, well, it's just not simply involved. That's a state level matter and something that's separate and apart and stands apart from what's happening at the federal level.
Let me ask you one more question before we turn to New York, though, on those federal matters. Whether explicit, I can remember some quotes from Obama about this. It doesn't seem like generally when a new president, a new administration comes in, the DOJ starts pursuing legal matters against former presidents, either because their crimes weren't as obvious or maybe a norm. I personally think that virtually every president has done things that domestically or internationally would run afoul of the law. Do you think that it is likely that they will do that, knowing that we're already a very divided nation. Donald Trump talked often about prosecuting his political enemies, and any action by the DOJ could hypothetically be spun that way from the right.
Joe Biden definitely seems that he wants to turn the page. He wants a sort of return to pre-Trumpian normalcy, if you will. So the notion of setting up some sort of Truth and Reconciliation Commission or going aggressively after Donald Trump at the federal level doesn't necessarily seem to be in the cards at this point. But of course, Donald Trump has broken so many norms. Donald Trump has been a president that unlike any that we've had in modern history. So by virtue of that, or as a result of that, we could be talking about a different reaction to a post-Trump presidency by the incoming administration than we've had before. I wouldn't take anything off the table at this point. I also wouldn't take off the table the notion that Donald Trump could possibly consider pardoning himself. He's definitely pardoned other allies of his, and if Donald Trump feels footsteps coming, don't put it past Donald Trump to try to use the powers that he has remaining over the next 9 weeks in order to get out of a situation. Far-fetched? Maybe, but hey, a lot of things have been pretty far-fetched and have come true over the past 4 years.
Yeah, and it of course would be within his power. And like if we're talking about norms, this is less outside of the bounds of norm. Well, pardoning himself certainly, but presidents often spend the last month or so of their presidency tracking down people to pardon, whether it's their former fundraisers or donors or people who justifiably deserve it. So he could, in theory, simply say he and his family and Stephen Miller and Jared Kushner or whoever could not be investigated, could not be sent to jail. How exactly would that work? Would that affect the New York stuff that we're talking about for him and his family for the rest of their lives?
So a pardon, just by the nature, a presidential pardon is not something that affects state level matters. It would only apply to federal level matters. And pardons, if you read your history book and remember what happened with Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon for crimes that he may or may not have committed, but in essence, it was a pardon that absolved him of any future prosecution for the things that he likely would have been impeached for had he not resigned. So a president can definitely pardon somebody for something that they haven't been convicted of. So for example, but we're also getting into some odd legal territory here. We have Roger Stone, the former dirty trickster and definitely ally of Donald Trump, who Donald Trump has commuted his jail sentence. Whether he would pardon somebody like a Roger Stone remains to be seen. And Donald Trump, in all likelihood, is going to issue a few pardons before he leaves office, almost certainly.
I gotta ask you one more question just about the self-pardon. So obviously he doesn't have to have already been convicted of something to pardon himself. He could preemptively pardon himself or others about it. My question would be, how specific does he have to be? Does he have to say he's pardoned for this particular violation, or can he go broad? Because obviously if he has to be specific, then it could be read as a list of his admitted crimes. I know that wouldn't have that formal effect, obviously, but can he just say absolves of everything, or does he have to say of this particular corruption or this obstruction of justice?
Well, John, we're getting into some pretty exotic constitutional law questions when you bring that up. I don't think anyone truly knows the answer, and you can fully expect that if Donald Trump tried to pardon himself as president, that something like that would have legal challenges up the wazoo. Now, there's another kind of, if you want to play this out, Donald Trump could resign and have then President Mike Pence pardon him. The chances of that happening pretty darn slim. But again, you gotta play these scenarios out, especially since Donald Trump right now, as we speak, is basically saying, pay no attention to Joe Biden being the president-elect. I'm still the president, and we're just going to move on as if I'm going to be president on January 20th for a second term.
And anyone watching this that wants more information, whether about the legal challenges to come or about the fundraising, Day's work is available. You can go and read a number of great articles written about these topics on Business Insider, and I would definitely advise that you do. Dave Leventhal, as always, love your reporting, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, John.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.